Hey guys, you might notice that this video looks a little bit different today, and that was intentional. I wanted to have more of a heart-to-heart style sit down with you because I wanted to be really candid and honest with you about something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And you know, for a lot of us here on YouTube who are content creators, we are slave to an algorithm. And we are slave to keywords that will perform for us. So a lot of the time I'm making videos that I'm doing my best to help you with, but at the same time, I do feel a little bit, you know, bound by the parameters that I need to stay within. So even though this video today sounds potentially clickbaity and potentially like, you know, I'm going for something specific, I can promise you that this keyword, I haven't even looked it up. It's probably not even going to perform for me. And I'm really just using this video today as a way of connecting with you and being very candid and honest with you about growth on Instagram right now. So Instagram is getting increasingly harder. It's also like literally one of the most searched things on YouTube right now. All of my analytics tools tell me that it's the thing to go after. However, my account isn't big enough to rank for the things that I actually want to talk about within Instagram. So it would essentially fall on deaf ears for the most part. I have been actually thinking about what moves the needle on Instagram now, because there are a ton of videos out. There are a ton of people going, this is what you need to do. This is how you grow in 2020. And it's all well and good, but let's just address something. A lot of those people making those videos have grown their following on YouTube first, and that has spilled over to Instagram because they push everyone that way. So please keep that in mind when you're watching YouTube videos. It's incredibly frustrating to see large accounts give you advice that isn't the most effective way for a small account to grow. And it's dishonest because their growth has come through virality on this channel or growth on this channel. And essentially they've funneled everybody that way. And that's what I do. I have no problem with that, you know, as a way to continue to grow other platforms. I just don't like it when it's positioned in a way that's not completely honest. And so for the smaller Instagram out there, for the smaller Instagram account out there, I wanted to be really honest with you about what I've seen within my clients and within my own account over the past 3 years that I've seen continue to move the needle again and again and again. So as many of you know, I manage and create content for Instagram accounts. I have a creative agency. We do social media content, video, we grow accounts, we manage accounts. I've grown, you know, accounts all the way up to 45,000 from scratch, and I've grown accounts from 0 to a few hundred, 0 to 1,000. We work with, you know, any size. However, if the truth be told, most of my clients are less than 1,000 followers, which is interesting because my Instagram account is less than 1,000 followers as well right now. And for anyone joining Instagram in 2020 and wanting to grow, there are a multitude of different ways to go about that. And before I go on, if you haven't yet watched it, check out this video that I actually created last year, all about how we grew one account from 0 to 15,000 in 12 months. It's basically every single thing that we did for that client. And also there's this video that I put out a couple of weeks ago, all about how to get your first 500 subscribers on Instagram as well. And I've actually really been reflecting on that video, and that's why I'm making this one now. So all of these things that I talk about in both of those videos are really, really important. You'll hear me talk about hashtags, you'll hear me talk about, you know, the quality of your content, you'll hear me talk about formatting and headlines and various bits and pieces, and they're all important. And the information that I'm about to give you cannot be done in isolation from those things. You still need to have an account that somebody wants to follow. You still need to be providing value. You still need to be clear and simplify things and create a feed that your ideal client or customer would actually want to partake in, right? So as I said, upon reflection of my own brand and the clients that I currently have, I truly believe that the number one fastest way to grow your Instagram account in 2020 and probably beyond is through collaboration. And I talked about this on my Instagram account the other day in one of my posts, and someone actually said to me, well, how do I collaborate? Like, what does that even look like? Which again is part of what got me thinking about this particular video. And I want to give you some examples from my own business, but also look at some bigger examples as well, so you can see how people who are doing it well are actually using this concept and this strategy far beyond anything else on their channel. To start with myself, I went back through my analytics and thought about the time where I had the biggest jump in followers in the last 6 to 12 months. And that was easy for me. I actually remember it. I did a webinar for a business coaches group that they have, and there was 40 people in that group, 50 maybe, and 40 of them followed me. And that was the biggest jump that I had. I taught on Instagram, they followed me on Instagram, and I asked them to follow me. The next time from memory that I can remember is last year I spoke in Sydney at an event about content, and I had my Instagram handle on those slides at the end, and I got a bunch of followers out of that. And every single time where I've jumped has been because I've been in front of a trusted audience. So for that business coach, they already trust him. So it's very easy for them to trust me because he trusts me, right? And if they're getting value from him, then they can trust that they're getting value from me. So it was a very easy ask and a very easy call to action for them to execute. And same with this speaking gig that I had. I stood on stage and talked for 45 minutes and built trust with the audience at that time, and it was easy for a lot of them to go and follow me after. And the other time that I would say, which is probably less of a collaboration but needs to be brought up because you can use it to your benefit in other ways that's a little bit more transparent, is one of my friends has 13,000 followers at the moment, and in the last 6 months has mentioned me 1 or 2 times, and every time he's done that I've gained about 10 followers. Now, for those of you who are thinking, oh, I want 100,000 followers and 200,000 followers, 10 people here and 40 people there doesn't sound like a lot. But when you have under 1,000 people on your Instagram, that's really big jumps. That is a really big jump in followers. So I want you to keep that in mind, especially if you are a smaller account, that if you can collaborate with people, that's going to help you build a trusted audience much faster than putting stuff out into the world and waiting for something to pop. The other way that I've seen this work is when I have clients who cross-pollinate their Instagram stories with friends. I actually had a client in the last year or so that had a few friends in the industry, and they would tag each other in their stories, and they would share the story, and they would make the story go further, and it was a lot of fun, but it increased their following. There was a point where it did stop actually doing that, but definitely in the beginning, that cross-pollination between stories just made it super easy for this person's follower to follow that person. And I've also seen it with my clients where they show behind the scenes of their stories and they tag brands in it, and then those brands share it to their stories. And again, it just becomes that trickle down effect. Now, some of you watching might be familiar with Gary Vee, and it's really interesting because I think he has right now maybe 8 million followers, something to that effect. And really with anything, there is a threshold where people stop growing and they plateau out because they've just reached a saturated amount for their market. But Gary continues to grow. And what's really interesting is if you look at the analytics for his channel. Yes, he continues to grow, but around the beginning of COVID, it starts to taper off. And then he started the show Tea with Gary Vee. And then you'll see the bump in the analytics go back up and continue to grow. It's not exponential growth, by the way. For him, that's the equivalent of the 10 or 40 followers, but he'd be getting, you know, a few hundred or a few thousand at any given go. But it's incremental growth. But that is a perfect example of collaboration where Gary says, hey, I'll give you free business advice. Basically, you've just got to, you know, be the person who jumps on the call, and they do. And Instagram sends out, you know, they do it through Instagram Live. Instagram sends out a notification to Gary's followers and to the person's followers that he pulls in and says, hey, this person's live with Gary Vee. And that immediately draws a new crowd. If this person has been following Gary and has 200 people that is following them, then all of a sudden he's being exposed to 200 new people. And it's not just him. You look at Jasmine Star, she's done this for a long time. Jasmine is known in the social media Instagram space, and she has had a show for a while. I want to say it's called Coffee and Conversations, but I haven't watched it in so long that I don't want to misrepresent her. So I'm sorry, Jasmine, if that's not what it's called. But basically, she makes coffee and she brings in people to answer their business questions, social media questions as well. It's very similar concept to Gary, and she was doing it long before Gary as well. And she continues to grow in the space, and she continues to have that authority in the space. So what I'm seeing time and time again is that as small accounts, the fastest way for you to jump up and get to that, whatever the number is for you. I know a lot of people say it's 10,000, but I really think it's, you know, 1 to 2,000 where it starts to get a little bit easier. That's certainly what I've seen, where followers start to happen a little bit more frequently. But it's probably one of the best ways at this point to grow in a significant way. And build a trusted audience. The best thing about collaborating as well is what I said earlier. If you collaborate with someone who already has a trusted audience, then the people that follow you are not following you because you had a piece of content go viral and they thought, wow, that's funny, and then you never put out something funny again and you're junk to them and they unfollow you. You literally go and provide value to someone else's audience. They already trust that person that has given you that platform, and then it makes it so much easier for them to follow you and buy into you and be loyal to you, right? And that's what we want. We want loyalty, and we want to build with a trusted platform. We don't want our engagement to tank just because we've got all these new followers. We want to be able to have meaningful conversations with people. So I want to finish the video with some tips if you are going to collaborate. There's a few ways that you can do it on Instagram. There's obviously Instagram Live, which we've talked about with Gary and Jasmine. And then secondly, you could do Instagram story takeovers that way. You can feature people on your feed, and they're probably the biggest ways at this point to collaborate. You could also use Reels and use the functionality that TikTok gives you to do split screens and duets and things like that together to potentially feature someone else in that regard. But if you're not familiar with TikTok or Reels, don't worry about that last comment so much. Just focus on either using Instagram Live or Instagram Stories, or using your feed to cross-pollinate. And then it's all about reaching out, you know, using established connections or reaching out with new connections that might have the same audience as you. And perhaps if you want to see me do a video on how to make those connections, leave me a comment in the comment section below, just so that I know that you want that, because I'm happy to put that together for you. I've done many a cold calling in my time, and you know, my best performing video on this channel is all about how to cold message somebody on LinkedIn, sorry. So it's definitely not something that's new to me. I'm happy to put that together for you, but you need to let me know in the comments below. Yes, we all want to grow, and I get that, and we get itchy feet around it. We just want to get started and do the thing. But remember that even when you're not collaborating, you need to be showing up on Instagram regardless. You need to be on stories, particularly because they build depth, they build trust, they build connection in a way that you know, a feed post can't. You also need to have great content on your feed that provides value to your customer or your end client. You need to be putting out content that they want to consume, that helps them, that gets them to from A to B. You need to be putting out great content. That's always a thing. That's always the standard. It's never quality or quantity. It's always quality always, and then think about quantity, right? So I also highly recommend having somewhere for people to go, something for them to sign up to, an email list, a downloadable, something, anything. Have that in your feed, because we need to be getting people off the rented land of Instagram and into something that we own, and we own the email list. So make sure that you have something like that. And if you don't, look into how to make a freebie or an opt-in, or set up a list and get people onto that as soon as you possibly can. And then the final thing that I'll add is populate your highlights on Instagram, so that when people do come to your account, they can binge watch certain things about you, whether that's FAQs, whether that's your services, whether that's, you know, the story about you, about the company, about the business, how you operate, how you work, the things that you believe. Get those highlights going as soon as you can, because they're really they're like a channel change on a TV, right? It's like, okay, now I want to watch a bit of this. Now I want to learn a bit more about this. So populate your highlights feed. So the final thing that I would ask you to do from this video, apart from subscribe and like this video if it brought you value, is in the comments below, as well as what I asked before, I want you to take this opportunity to network. Pop in your IG handle, pop in your ideal client, and what you do and the value that you bring, and then begin to network with one another in the comments. So just take this opportunity to network and start that collaboration and build your Instagram bit by bit. And that is this week's video, all about the #1 way to grow on Instagram in 2020. If you want to reach out to me, you can follow me here over on Instagram. I put stories out every day. You can hit me up in the DMs. I am all over Instagram as much as I am all over YouTube, probably even more because I am on Instagram daily. So come and follow me there. I would love to meet you, talk to you, answer any of the questions that you have. But otherwise, that's it from me this week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.